The lesson outcome for this video is, I can write linear equations when given slope, the y-intercept, and/or a point. So we're going to have several different video lessons on writing linear equations. This one specifically works on if we're given these three things, so slope, y-intercept, or a point. Now, depending on what information you're given in a problem, you're going to have to decide whether you use this form of linear equations, which hopefully you remember is slope-intercept, or the next type, which we'll do on the next slide, which is point-slope. All right, so let's just recall that m in our equation y equals mx plus b is our slope, and the b is our y-intercept, where the graph crosses the y-axis. So if we read this question, write the equation of the line that has a slope of 3, okay, I'm using purple for slope here, and a y-intercept of -7, green for our y-intercept, we're supposed to write this equation. Well, it's pretty straightforward. We need to put this 3 in where we see the slope, so the 3 goes in for m, and we need to put this -7 in where the y-intercept goes in the equation, which is here. The y-intercept is plus b here. So when we write this, we're going to write y equals our slope, which is 3, goes in for m, and then the x, and then our y-intercept is -7. So we're going to put -7 in here for this plus b. Even though it says plus, we can write plus on -7, or we can just write -7. Now always double check after you write your equation if it does truly fit what it asks you to do. Write the equation of a line that has a slope of 3, yep, slope goes in for m here, and a y-intercept of -7. Now sometimes, like I said in the previous screen, we're going to use the point-slope form of linear equations to write our equation of a line, and that is when you see something like the following. This one says, write the equation of a line that has a slope of 3, so still slope, but this time we don't know the y-intercept. Notice it says, and goes through the point 5, 2. So let's remember that when we have this form right here, again, our m is still slope, okay? But then remember that our x1 and our y1 in this equation is a point with the coordinates of x1 and y1. All right? Now one thing you have to remember is when we were graphing these in a previous unit, we needed to take whatever value was in this parenthesis, for example, right here. So if it had said x plus 3, we knew we would write -3 here, right? So the opposite sign from inside the parentheses here would go in our point. So that same information has to be used here if we know our point is 5, 2. And you'll see as I go through this example what we have to do. So let's remind ourselves that this right here is our x1, and this here is our y1, and over here, our slope of 3, that's of course our m. So I'm going to write the equation. I'm just going to write it straight down below. So y, now usually we write y minus our y1 value. So if we wanted to write y minus our y1 value, which is right here, we'd write y minus 2 equals our m value, well here's our m value, 3, and then parentheses, and again I hope you notice I'm just rewriting this right here directly below. I'm just filling everything in the same. So now we're going to write x, and then we need our x1 value, right? So our x1 value is 5 right here, so we're going to write -5. So if you had this equation right here and I asked you to graph it, the first thing you would need to do, right, is to write down your point. This is just a way to check that you have the equation written down correctly. The first thing we had to do was write down the point that we know from this equation. Remember, we'd find our x value from right here, and if it says x minus 5, we would write +5. And our y value would come from over here, and if it says y minus 2, we would write +2. Now, is this the point that was given in the directions that we wanted to go through? Yes, it is, 5, 2. So remember that if this is +5 and this is +2, we're going to write x minus 5 and we're going to write y minus 2, just like we did when we wrote the point from the equation. So let's try a couple more examples of each type. So, or at least one example of each type here. So write the equation of a line that has a y-intercept of -2 and a slope of 4/5. Why don't you pause the video for just a second and write the equation from what we had just talked about on the previous screens. Okay, so since this one is giving you two pieces of information, be careful for the order in which I've provided it. The slope is right here this time. The slope is 4/5. The y-intercept I listed first. Shouldn't matter what order I list them in, you still need to write them correctly in the equation, right? So y equals mx plus b. Okay, so we're going to write y equals 4/5 for our slope, right? X, and then -2, because our y-intercept was -2. So that is the equation we should write. All right, pause the video and try this next one. Write the equation of a line that has a slope of -1/2 and goes through the point -8, 3. All right, so now that we're given a slope in this equation, or in this example, pardon me, and a point, think about it for a minute. We need to use point-slope form. Point-slope form. So that is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is our m value right here, and then we've got our x1 and our y1. So we're going to fill those in. So it should be y, sorry, I'm going to erase that and try that again. Y, I'm going to do that actually here. So y for the third time. Our y1 is right here, and it's 3, +3. So we are going to have y minus 3, because if it's +3 here, it should look like -3 here, or it should be, equals our slope, which is -1/2, and then x minus our x1 value, which is -8. So you see what happened there? X minus our x1 value is -8, so I wrote the -8 in there. So if I wanted to simplify this just a little bit, I could take these two minus signs, minus a minus, and make a plus. So y minus 3 equals -1/2 x plus 8. Again, if we pulled our point from this equation right here, if we were to write down the point, we would say the point that we know is on the graph is the opposite of this for our x value, so -8, and the opposite of this for the y value, which is 3, and that is the point that we were asked to use. All right, one last one. This one, I mixed it up a little bit. It says write the equation of a line with a slope of 5 and goes through the origin. Sorry about that. Should say and goes through the origin. All right, so this time I'm not telling you a y-intercept or a point in a straightforward manner. I still have the slope of 5, but I don't have a y-intercept listed and I don't have a point listed. Well, here's the thing. You could write this equation in either form. Okay? So the first form is y equals mx plus b. We know the slope, so y equals the slope of 5x, and if it goes through the origin, which is right here, what is the y-intercept of that point? Well, the y-intercept is 0, so it would be plus 0, or in other words, just y equals 5x. The other form of the line, the point-slope form, we could also use. Because, again, we know the slope is 5, so we can put that in here. And we need a point. Well, guess what? Again, this point right here, the origin, is a point, and that point is 0, 0. So I could put a -0 here and a -0 here, and then what happens is we get the same equation. Because what's y minus nothing? Well, y minus nothing, or y minus 0, is just y equals, and then right here, what's x minus 0? Well, that's just x, so we'd have 5 times x, which is 5x. So whichever way you do this, you will get the same equation, and either way is fine.